Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play show set in the Eberron campaign world. It's Friday, so we have another Khyber Shards Answers, and this week we are joined by both Eric and R.A., players of Ari and Esri, respectively.
Eric, R.A., Ari, Esri. Just,
Yes, it's super easy. It's really easy. So, this last episode was fun.
Yeah.
We just finished episode where we have some fun. Awkward conversation in various ways.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So let's start. Let's start, Eric.
Yes.
So, to lift the curtain a little bit, this episode was largely your idea.
Yeah.
Because we got to the end of the last thing and we're ready to kind of move to the next thing we were doing, but we didn't want to leave the Ari Pog conflict hanging.
Them just outright not talking to each other was like the big thing. We
didn't want to just leave that hanging. So we decided to do this one. And somewhere in there, you'd presumably worked out where Ari's going to be on this.
Yep. And I feel like Colin did the same thing for Pog.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So how did you come to the conclusion of where Ari is going to be on this?
Well, from a meta standpoint, thinking about, I've obviously decided that Ari is deeply affected by both the near being a murderee and doing the murdering. And both of those things are weighing heavily on him, as it would a normal, well-adjusted person, I feel like. I was like, there are really, I feel like, two paths before me. And one is Ari.
Hold on, I need to interrupt you there. Are you suggesting that Ari is well-adjusted?
He was. Episode 1 of this campaign, Ari was very well-adjusted. Like, he knew who he was. And no, and so it was just like, go down this path of despair and depression and like kind of just becoming a real bummer to be around, doing that, or doing what I think an actual 20-year-old would do when faced with their own mortality and a sense of depression, and that's distract as much as possible. Not at all speaking from personal experience. So that's really where I wanted to go with it. And with that is that kind of sense of, there's this looming conflict with Pog, who's one of Ari's best friends. And there's a lot of things that Ari wanted to say and still, is on his mind. But it's like, it's just going to cause conflict if I try to air all this stuff out, especially in one sitting. And so I'm going to apologize for what I think he's mad about. Because he never told him. Like, it was just like, he did in the conversation. And that's a whole other thing for Ari, is like, Ari and Eric were caught off guard by the content of that conversation. But had a pretty decent approximation for what Pog was probably upset with. So, address that, apologize, and try to move on best we can. As opposed to just going down a darker and darker path of Ari being bummed out all the time. So
I think the realist,
or at least projecting that bummed outedness. He's still bummed. It's just pushing it down.
I think the realist thing for me of the person who feels they're right but is trying to apologize was, there's something in the line. I don't remember exactly what it was, how you said it as Ari, but it was like, it was something akin to, I'm sorry you felt that way.
Yeah, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like the most non-apology.
Yeah. And that was the second apology. That was you've been manipulating all of us.
Yeah.
Which Ari didn't know what to do with that. So he's like, okay, my bad. That was, and I think something that I had in my head with Ari from the beginning of the campaign that I think he's kind of evaluated, and especially after the conversation with Pog, he's going to backpedal quite a bit, is, the culture that Ari came from, of this tight-knit, large, huge familial community. It was very much like, you take care of each other, you look out for each other, and you also try to like teach each other and guide each other and things like that. And I think Ari still was holding on to some of that mentality that he has realized is not appropriate or welcome anymore. And so he's, yeah. But that's why I came to the conclusion that Ari was going down the, it's all good, like, let's just move on. No big deal. No conflict. Cool kind of vibe. So, yeah. And conversation with you after we recorded, I feel like you and Colin were both caught off guard that was the approach that Ari decided to take.
Well, yeah, I mean, we kind of planned an episode of you guys having it out, and it was like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
So I was very happy that I had thought of other things to do.
Me too.
So. If I can just chime in there a little bit.
Please do.
Because Esri was on the sidelines.
No, we have you here. We would like you to sit in silence and watch.
If this is like the
chiming
Tonight
in
Show,
on
you're behind the
Ari's
curtain
thing.
still.
Hey guys, can I talk about?
Esri was on the sidelines for that bit of conversation, and I think he mentioned it. I think I said something after it happened, which was noticing that, like, okay, you apologize and y'all are talking again, but like literally nothing of substance was, from his point of view, covered. It was like, because he very much agrees with Ari on some of the substance anyway. You know, yeah, we should have waited. We should have come back. And he's also a little confused about the lying thing. He's sort of watching this again from the sides of like, okay, is this what was happening before? It's so confusing. So that's probably gonna come up at some point. But he also was kind of weary of the conflict and was just like, well, maybe we'll never have to fight anything again, and it just won't matter if we know how to plan. Together. That perhaps that's what will happen. So, no, there's definitely like a pin in it that will have to come out at some point.
I mean, certainly the things that were bothering Ari are not gone. Like, he's just ignoring them, and yeah, surely no conflict will come up that will trigger any of these feelings that he's been having. But yeah, I mean, it's there was something that you said that triggered something that I wanted to say, and now I can't remember. So anyway, maybe it'll come back to me.
And then I don't know, Ra, were you in the least prepared to spend such a substantial amount of the episode in debate with an NPC?
No, not in any way. Knowing as I did that, okay, this is sort of this was our one. You know, we planned a one-time episode here to make sure we wrapped up, just because it got too late the time before. Make sure we wrapped up some of those feelings, and the first thing you said is Esri. Like, wait,
Esri.
what?
Yeah.
I was prepared to sit here for half an hour. No, as with everything,
little did you know that
happened,
the rest of us would be sitting here for a half an hour.
Right. As with everything so far that's happened with Esri's mark, I have been 100% unprepared. It was not. I had forgotten about the bust entirely, nor did I ever think it, even when we got it, that the reason I forgot about it is because I didn't think it would be important.
Sure. Yeah,
like,
I was banking on that. I was banking that you guys had entirely forgotten that the bust existed.
Well, it was the thing we invented. And it was the thing we invented as like a mild, maybe a mildly valuable thing, or really, I mean, probably Ari was like a thing I'm going to give back to somebody because it doesn't belong to us. And then like, okay, that's gone. But I was 100% unprepared, but that's my MO. I don't prepare.
Yeah, sure. And I enjoy you letting me mess with you quite frequently with this element of the story. That actually plays into some questions, so I want to jump into some of the questions that we have here. We have questions from 3 of our viewers. The first few come from Darren. Unsurprisingly, for those of us who have talked with Darren much or gotten to know Darren a little bit, this episode was very much Darren's favorite because we played with the deep lore
He's
of
a
Eberron.
big old Eberron nerd.
Yeah. And yeah. So Darren has a question for RA and Eric. Well, actually, he doesn't, because he says not a question. But I would love to hear both of your thoughts on the evolution of the dynamic between Esri and Ari.
I think you can phrase it as a question fairly easily by putting a question word at the beginning of it.
One of you begin.
Sure. I'll unfortunately a little bit reiterate what I've said before, is that I think it was a surprise to me. I know it was a surprise to me early on how contentious it got. And I think that was that it was just largely that something so polarizing happened surprisingly very early on in the campaign. And so perhaps had we 20 episodes to establish our relationship to each other beforehand, maybe that would have played out differently. So it was a little meta, is that we were both bringing just like our real raw ideas of our characters to this encounter, and it played out how it did. So I really just think you're starting probably to see what was delayed by that, and starting to see the more nuanced interaction between the group and still trying to figure out where everyone fits, and what each other wants out of it. And of course with Esri, he's trying to figure out what he wants out of it.
Mm-hmm. Or you said what was delayed, and I was thinking about we have not actually gotten to the thing that I wrote on the third page of my campaign notebook. Because on the second page of my campaign notebook is Donabella, and the way that went down just sort of, oh, okay, well, let's deal with this for a while. Yep.
Well, and
yeah.
I remember talking about the Ari Esri dynamic reminded me of what I was going to say when talking about the Ari Pog Esri start to this episode. We're all children. Like we're smooth brain babies. At least that's the way I'm playing Ari, is like he's 20. Like he's a big old dum-dum when it comes to like social cues and conflict resolution and stuff like that. And so like when you see him having these conversations with Esri about Pog behind Pog's back because he's just so frustrated with Pog, that's what 20-year-olds do. They don't want to deal with it. Like they just want to vent and have somebody hear them. At least in my experience. And so, at the watch parties and stuff, I've seen some frustration with conflict resolution that's intentional. Ari's a dummy. He's 20, and yeah. So when it comes to that. So anyway, and pivoting perfectly into that, I don't think any of us could have anticipated how to handle a young girl in distress as being the exposed nerve that was just going to cause conflict within the party. I know I certainly didn't, and I don't imagine anybody did. And so, yeah, like RA said, it was just that one of the most important parts of our backstories was the conditions in which our families treated us, and that became very important very quickly. And so it just created this sense of tension. But obviously, I think this question was floated around a lot in the early episodes of this campaign, was like, why do they spend time together? And I think we're finally starting to see that part of it, like before this bit of conflict. It would be like if the campaign started off with the Ari Pog conflict that we have right now. Mm-hmm. It's like, why do they like each other? And so, yeah, I imagine that Ari and Esri have gotten along fine. Like they're roommates. They get on well enough. Like, they don't have a whole lot in common. I mean, Esri likes natural things and Ari finds them dangerous. So And
It's not wrong.
Well, and I feel like there's been some back and forth. Is Esri like a social person? Like, does Esri go out and see people? He doesn't like people, so I don't imagine.
Yeah, I think so. To answer that question, I'll back up a little bit and say I have similar things about Esri. Not really even just playing him as, you know, early 20-ish, or 20-ish, I suppose. But also something that actually I think I learned from you, Philip, about arrested childhood development. Mm-hmm. That Esri is simultaneously 10 years old, 20 years old, and probably about 40 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In different ways. And so he's still struggling with the idea of like people as anything other than data or tools, maybe not quite, but you know, it's okay. This person is available to me for this. They are dangerous in this way. He only really thinks of a few people even deeper than that. Mm-hmm. Any deeper than that, I should say. So yeah, he does not seek out social encounters. He knows how to manipulate and get what he wants out of people. I've been trying to ride this line of he's a charismatic person who understands how to read people because he had to be to survive, but he doesn't know it in this. He doesn't know how to like be to do what Ari does, to make people like him and I guess motivate himself to care about other people intrinsically. You know, empathy, I guess, is really the thing. He can have that sort of disaffected empathy or disconnected empathy where he can sort of understand what people intend and are feeling, but that doesn't move him in an emotional way to connect with them. So it's, I mean, I guess I'm sort of describing a sociopath, but I don't think it's that strong. I think it's just a matter of experience and learning these things. And we've seen some moments where he sees in the Rubble Warren gang a version of himself. Mm-hmm. These are kids who are on the street by choice, doing dangerous things by choice. And so he suddenly sees, well, I have something to offer these kinds of people. But yeah, he doesn't really need too many people. He doesn't seek them out.
Mm-hmm. So cool. Like Ari enjoys people and enjoys going out and enjoys he's an extrovert. And so Ari and Esri wouldn't spend a whole lot of time doing that either. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting group. And I feel like Ari is just kind of your typical, it would be junior in college at this point. Like it's the first time of him living on his own without any real sense of structure. And he's in his third year of it at this point. And so it's like, I'm starting to figure some things out, but not really. So yeah,
I think you can see this relationship. I mean, so Eric and I were college roommates for a number of years. And Eric is far more extroverted than I am. And really enjoys going out and during college went out and did all the college things, went to the parties, that kind of thing. Stayed out really late, and I would stay out really late if there was like a very small group of people we were hanging out with. And Eric and Colin and all the other people, extroverted people I knew in college, were very nice about trying to include me in things. But I mean, you ask me, do you want to go hang out at somebody's house where everyone will be loud for the next 6 hours until, I don't know, sometime in the morning, and you get to come home whenever we're done being this way. Yeah. No, I don't want to. Why would I? No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do anything like that. So there's, in the Venn diagram of me and Eric's lives, there's overlap. And in that overlap, we get along really, really well. But we also know well enough that over here in these zones, we're just gonna, let each other be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I think that kind of
added
relationship is a lot of friendships.
But with the added dynamic of truly needing each other, or in certain instances, being connected by something that they can't otherwise control at all.
Yeah,
certainly.
Well, yeah, I mean that's like Esri and Shade and Pog are all blessed more than Philip because Ari respects our privacy and our well-being enough to not bring people over to hang out at the house, at the tree house, because we can't go telling people where we live. So I'll just go to other people's places. Philip did not get that luxury. There's going to be 20 people here in a half hour. I hope that's okay.
As long as they stay out of my room where I will be and aren't too loud.
So.
Another question from Darren. Question for RA. And you kind of addressed this, but as a player, are you familiar with the Eberron lore that was revealed in this past episode, or are you learning about this facet of Eberron at the same time as Esri?
I don't know nothing. I do have, by way of gift, an Eberron book, but it doesn't delve, at least, I mean, I can maybe look up some of this now, but it doesn't really delve into that stuff. I've looked up.
Yeah.
Does it? I mean,
not a lot. No, not. You have Rising from the Last War is the one that I.
It doesn't really cover this continent that much.
No, it really doesn't. There's probably, I'm sure there's an article in there on the Blood of Vol as a religion, but not in depth about the deep lore backstory of it, which is
I'm not one
not
to
explored very. Yeah,
as I said before, prepare and I'm not one to go into depth on these things. Sometimes it becomes a problem if I know what exists. It's a little harder to separate what the character knows from what I know, and so I like being surprised. I like playing it off the cuff, and it also, maybe the official lore is, I don't know how much of the official lore we're using versus not using, and so I don't want to, having not known it before. I don't think I need to bring anything extra to that, personally. So,
yeah, we didn't have a very firm concept for your secret when we talked, and a while ago, I messaged RA and said, "How would you feel if I just decided that Esri's mark is something more than it seems? This would require me to have a little more control over the evolution of your mark." And RA very generously went, "Go for it." So,
yeah, I mean, it was very much a meta decision based on the character who doesn't know anything about his own, any secret he had about his mark, or whatever he is or who he is, he wouldn't know about it very well anyway. So it is as surprising to me as him. Like I said, everything about the mark so far has been a complete surprise to both of us.
Yeah, and as it was really inspired by the way you'd been playing it, like the things you'd been developing, and I was looking at the spell list for what Circle of Spores picks up for the Druid and that sort of thing, since you had been flavoring that as expansion of the power of his mark. And I'm like, this is just, I don't know, this is just too good. So decided to go for that. Yeah. This is all very much a surprise to RA, which delights me. It'll be fun. Darren also has a question for Eric. As a fellow Eberron DM, what is it like for you to watch Philip's interpretation of Eberron lore get revealed when you are the player? Is there a lot of internal screaming, or are you just happy to be along for the ride?
If by internal screaming you mean like my horror at Philip bastardizing the lore, then absolutely not. Like, what are you doing? No,
He's
never
totally
anything
okay
like
with him bastardizing the lore.
Philip has a much lighter touch than I do. So I just look at things in the lore and go, nope, not that. Gonna do something different. So
Eric's better at containing himself when I do that than I have been in the past. I have a harder time with it.
But so for the big reveal in this episode, I actually had a conversation with Philip when he was down one of the blessed few times that we got to record Eberron Renewed in person this year. And in my head it was just like, it's his mark. Dead things are talking. I have an inclination, just knowing the lore, that maybe this is it. Obviously didn't know for certain, but was very happy because, getting to play with the Mark of Death in a campaign, especially with a PC having it, is, I think, a really fun and interesting thing, just because it's such a huge gap in the Eberron lore that Baker intentionally left there. So... because that's the biggest question with anybody is, what does the Mark of Death do? It's like, well, we're going to get to, we've gotten to see that, and we're going to get to see it continue to evolve. So, no, I'm happy to be along for the ride. I'm enjoying what Philip is doing with the lore, and it's kind of the exact opposite for Ari's secret, in that Ari is aware of what his secret is, and Eric is also aware of what his secret is. You're not muted.
Oh.
Now you are muted.
That was the opposite of hush, Strider.
Ari is aware of what his secret is, and Eric is, and it's more of an Ari's secret presents an ever-present impact on his life. And so both Ari and Eric are just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, which is fun to just be like, oh God, like, is today the day? So yeah, it's fun. I enjoy seeing what Philip does with the lore, and Philip and I have such different approaches as both handlers of the lore and as DMs, that, it's sometimes it's very much like Philip and I are playing different sports when it comes to our DMing style. And so it's always fun to just see how different somebody can approach DMing, compared to how I do it. So I have no interest in anybody providing analytical breakdowns of our DMing differences, please and thank you.
Please, yeah. Thanks. We're good.
Keep that to your private discords.
Yeah. The secret Eric chose is interesting. I would be unsurprised if at least someone out there maybe guessed where I was going with Esri, because there were hints and I was pretty clearly building up to it. I also think that Shades is guessable by this point. I don't know if anyone has guessed it yet. I think maybe someone has. I don't know that Ari's is yet. We haven't gotten to delve into that one in a lot of detail yet. I've given some hints, but not a lot. So it'll be fun. I'm starting to get a picture of where I want to go with this, which I didn't really have when I decided to let's try out the Eberron Confidential thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be fun. And then
let me jump back in, just real quick. My favorite part of the whole episode on rewatch was watch, I suppose, instead of participate, was the bust says, "You are a necromancer." Like, what? No, no, I'm not.
Well, yeah.
Come again?
Rewatching it, I realized what
You're
the
a
real
necromancer, Esri.
I realized what the real world analog of what most of that episode was. It was one person talking to somebody on the phone and everybody else in the room yelling input at the person. Like, are they saying this? Tell him this. It's just like, Esri had 4 people yelling at him. No, I'm sure Cal was yelling something. So it was a fun episode.
I was glad to be able to bring the bust back out, because it was probably a maybe a session or two after it got introduced to the story that I started thinking, what, I got to do something with this. This will be interesting. Also, they've clearly forgotten about it because didn't go immediately sell it or anything. So they've clearly forgotten about it. It's still going to be here. So this is a resource for me.
Things came up.
Yeah. Well, I know. And I think it's been handy in that I think it could be very handy.
It's okay.
Depending on how things progress as a resource, especially with some of the other things we're dealing with. So, one moment.
I'll ask you a question real quick. All right, does it change Ezri's feelings at all, knowing that his mark is a real mark, like getting that information that he's not an aberrant marked person?
So, as opposed to
specifically said she wouldn't kill another aberrant marked person. So now Ezri is on the chopping block. So
Ezri's feelings about marks are somewhat different, I think, than the rest of the group. At least very different from Ari, in that Ezri doesn't see the houses as an enemy, as like a personal enemy. He sees them as dangerous, but at the same time, it's, okay, they have their place. It's really that having a mark and not being part of the house, or a house, means that you're targeted, that you're on the outside, and that you're different. The new information doesn't actually change any of that, even if, and he doesn't know this yet, even if it's completely true. Then, well, society at large does not believe or act this way. And so it's not going to change any of his day-to-day, because all of his concerns are practical, personal and practical, not even like, he's not trying to change the world.
I'm just thinking about the fact that, to the large majority of the world, nothing has changed for Ezri. But for the very small population that knows what Ezri's mark is, it's so much worse for Ezri.
Maybe.
That's fair. That's fair.
I do think it's going.
Eberron.
It's going to come up, but probably not in any like real significant way yet.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, just going back to the dynamic between Ari and Ezri, I thought, because you made it pretty clear early on where Ezri stood with the houses, and especially with Soren.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was going to be the like nucleus of conflict between Ari and Ezri.
Right.
What was our fundamental disagreement on the nature of the houses, and Soren as kind of this avatar of that hadn't even come up. So yeah.
Well, everyone we've interacted with from a house so far is, I mean, we've both had
making Ari
disdain for them for the most part anyway. So
yeah,
that is not actually true.
Oh well, fair enough. Everybody that we know from that is from a marked house. Yeah.
Let's see. Then Laura asks, question for me. How much of the lore from that episode was you versus the Eberron canon? Her quotes, not mine. I'm not being disdainful.
And I guess that's also canon with a K, like, because that is two distinct things. Keith Baker's canon versus the D&D canon.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's okay. I'd never heard it expressed that way. That's interesting.
Yeah. Canon with a K.
Yeah, that's true. Keith Baker has continued to write about Eberron since not in areas where he's not, working with Wizards of the Coast, and so that, of course, remains sort of unofficial legends material to use. Star Wars stuff. Okay, so as far as it goes, things that I have altered that may have had some Eberron nerds screaming in their heads. I don't know. I've implied that there are dragon marks known to be in existence much, much earlier than the timeline you would find in any Eberron book would say. And I've implied a slightly different thing about the relationship between the two shadow-marked houses, House Thorani and House Fjarlin. So I've changed a couple of pieces of timeline. Actually, in the second case with the relationship between Thorani and Fjarlin, I've actually just added something. And I honestly don't know that that will ever come up. I don't currently anticipate the conflict between Fjarlin and Thorani becoming an important part of this campaign. It could, because lots of things have happened that I didn't expect. But that probably won't matter a lot. But I have added something, a dynamic to that. And I've implied that dragon marks occurred much, much earlier. That's really it. I established some things that aren't explained in the lore. Like, he mentions, Jalère mentions being one of the honored masters of an elven city-state. And so I'm establishing some things about what the political status of elves was way back in the Age of Giants. So I've established some things that are not dealt with in the lore. But the only thing I would say I've perhaps altered about the way the lore appears in any of the books you could buy is when dragon marks are known to exist, and I've implied a change to the relationship between those two elven houses. That's really it. So most of that I drew from Baker. I've drawn most of the things about the giants that we've seen have come out of various source books. The thing about canon in Eberron is that even in most of the published source books, for things dealing with the very ancient past, the author, especially when it's Keith Baker, the author will say, this might have happened, or some stories say this happened, or other legends tell of this. And so you've kind of got, here are some options that you could do, whatever fits your best campaign. So the ancient lore has not really got much in the way of canon in Eberron. And I mean, despite the fact that I tend to use more of it, and I'm inclined towards faithfulness to it. I agree full-heartedly with Eric that when you look at an Eberron book, you're looking at a tool, or any D&D book, you're looking at a toolkit, and you pick the things that work for your campaign. It's not, it's not scripture. It's not something somehow holy that can't be altered. So.
Well, and I tend to view those like history books, like Philip would also approach them. Except with my mind, it's like, okay, but what are they missing, or what was twisted, or what and Eberron lore, more than I think any other setting, is like islands of lore. Like you have these pockets where there's deep, deep, deep lore, and then in the gaps, it's like some stuff happened, maybe, or like Philip said, or this thing happened, or whatever. And Zendrick is so much, especially the Age of Giants, is so much that way. And it's especially funny for me with campaign 1 of Eberron Renewed dealing heavily with the history of Zendrick, now getting to see Philip dipping the toes in there. So it's fun. Yeah. Different part of the continent, I guess. Yeah, there is a very little, like, between the things that are being established right now as important to the plot about history. There's a very distinct, very narrow overlap of what we're dealing with, because your campaign dealt very heavily with the Quarry invasion, which we've mentioned in the Colseer Dominion, and we've seen several things occurring during the Colseer Dominion that have been mentioned in this. So, yeah. Then Laura also asks, so you think the Stormhammers are dead? Yep.
Not all of them, just Tommel.
I especially...
Here, let me give my answer.
I honestly, while I was editing the last Khyber Shards answers with just you, where you were getting into like the details about the Sulitar and all that stuff, and kind of talking about the way they operate, I was just sitting here going, we should have gone to the city. Like, thought they were mean, evil, fire wielding drow, and Philip's just saying, nope, not true. So
someone commented on that one that they once played a Sulitar rune knight who had held on to the giant traditions, and I just thought, oh, that's a great character concept.
Yeah,
Probably going to steal it one day.
Was that a viable option in your mind?
To play a
No, to
play a
for us to
drow?
follow the map.
for us to just
follow
take
that?
the map and go.
I would have rolled with it. I didn't have anything planned in that. I thought it was very unlikely.
Yeah,
It seemed too dangerous
because-
for our level.
Well, yes, it would be very dangerous to just plunge into the jungle. And I also figured, I think, well, I want to come back to this thought because a question was literally just submitted on the Discord from Nathan Stiller. He wants to know, why didn't anyone want to go to the ancient giant city?
oh my god,
No way.
I'm not kidding. Right there, timestamp.
In case you want to know when we're recording.
yeah,
Right.
Now you know.
Nathan, that's what we call a slam dunk
6 minutes
of a
ago.
question.
So I would like to hear what your two characters' reasons were, and then I will
Ari-
say why I didn't think you would.
Ari doesn't like the jungle, first and foremost. Knows he's going to get eaten by something out there. But also, our whole motivation was protecting the Rubble Warren gang. And if we were to go to the city, it would mean leaving the city, leaving the kids behind in the city with the Stormhammers, who are now angry at us, and the leverage that they had was harming the kids. So unless we're taking the children with us, in which case, why would we ever do that? So at least in Ari's mind, it was like, we have a very clear motivation for why we're doing what we're doing, and leaving the city accomplishes none of our goals other than figuring out what they want. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I do. Ezri's. If it was a situation where like Ezri was in charge of saying this is what we're gonna do, you know, let's go, squad. His inclination would have been to follow them out, to keep tabs on them, follow them out, follow them to the city. Probably meaning, you know, follow them secretly as long as they could, but really you'd end up in a several movies do this, and now one's not coming to my mind, but like where rival factions are going to the same place, and so they end up teaming up as long as they can. But yeah, there's opposition in the group to that for various reasons, but Ezri would have been totally down for that.
Yeah.
It would have just been a personal safety concern for Ari at that point. And yeah. And also, honestly, and I think I mentioned this in character, Ari half assumed that Tama was going to pull okay, now that you've got me the map, I need some goons to go with me on this quest. And so Ari was kind of prepared to go to the giant city against his will. So I think it was more of relief that he wasn't going to be forced to. It was like, okay, I'm going to sit on my couch now.
X-Men 2, that's what it is.
Yeah.
X2
is a good example.
is one of those.
And if the group had been in a good place, maybe there would have been more insisting or wheeling. But like when you're not getting along, like going on a trek through the worst place in the world, is not it's not advisable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was, going back to this last episode, that was Ari's whole thing, is like, this conflict is going to get one of us killed, so I'm going to throw a Band-Aid on this bullet hole just so we don't die.
And all of those were my reasons why I didn't expect you to. Why I mainly was the Stormhammers things. It would mean leaving the city and leaving the kids in danger. Like, because there's no way you can't just take, I mean, without kidnapping them, you can't just take the kids. And I think we've established that these would be hard children to kidnap. And
At least quietly.
Yeah. You aren't likely to take their whole families along with you.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Moon
only
Spears.
know two of the families at all anyway. So it seemed very unlikely to me. I'd have rolled with it and have created, that adventure. But it did seem pretty unlikely to me that that's where you would go.
I'm now realizing that not following them has resulted in us missing out on getting to recreate the plot of the first Brendan Fraser Mummy movie, and that makes me sad.
I was thinking, I had that in my head too. That there's a similar
we got
thing.
all the horses. You're on the wrong side of the river.
I want to answer a question. I want to answer a question that hasn't been asked because I think it's been mentioned, but not in like our channels, and I don't think it'll come up again. And that's to do with the arcane mark that was put on the map. And you know, as Esri didn't let anyone else know that it was there, and he stayed behind to see if he could to see what he would be told about it, to what Hallis would say about it. But Esri is actually counting on that being something interfering. Because he's very hopeful that they're going to use that to follow the Stormhammers or ruin the map, or it's like, you know what, we're giving this away. If you guys who are way more prepared for something like this are going to go out and interfere, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And speaking about the the arcane mark, I won't get into the specific details, but kind of going back to Darren's question about being an Eberron lore nerd, another big joy that I have is knowing things about the Eberron lore that haven't come up and wondering if Philip's going to use it. I know that this thing is there, or this element of this thing is there, but is it here? And so, that's always a fun mental game for me, Eric the player, obviously not Ari the character, to play. So,
and we have our last question, which comes from Mia. What do Ari and Esri feel are the other's greatest strengths?
Oh, right, this question.
So we're in the little office from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You sit facing each other and say something nice.
I can start
Really,
this one.
what do your characters think
easy,
there?
I think, because I feel like Esri's been clear about this. Mentioning it. He really. So I think one thing that's different about Esri from the rest of the group is he has confidence in them as a fighting unit. He actually put some stock in their training together and believes that they're really capable of handling a lot of situations. So he respects Ari's mark abilities. First of all, he knows at least some of what he's capable of, and he respects that. And he also readily believes that Ari is the best equipped to deal with situations that are socially difficult. He's the first one Esri looks to with like, hey, this maybe needs some talking. The rest of us aren't going to do that well, so if you want to try, now's the time. So I think, in terms of like skills, I guess that's a little more mechanical, but that's how he thinks of things anyway. So yeah.
I think with Ari looking at Esri, Ari very much sees a survivor and somebody that I'm sure Ari has thought in his head or said over a round of drinks that when we're all long dead and gone, Esri will still persist, just because Esri survives. And it's his mentality of ripping a hole in the wall of the treehouse so he has an escape hole. And I have friends that carry bug out bags in their car because, you never know when things are going to go sideways. And it's that kind of mentality of not in an unhealthy way, but just, not if, but when. It's not if something's going to go wrong, but when things go wrong, I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to be able to handle myself and take care of it. And then additionally, the numerous times up to this point that Esri has literally brought Ari back to life is also a big plus.
Yeah, y'all, I did not build Esri as a healer. That was not the concept.
I didn't build Ari as a frontline fighter, but
yeah, this came up recently, but this group is while Esri does believe in their ability to fight as a unit, we haven't really done it too much yet.
Yeah.
And so, we have not been fighting efficiently. There's been some very interesting takes on what you would normally think how the group would be arranged.
Yeah.
That's the classic, like, second act of the superhero movie, though. Is you're all using your powers, but it's not coordinated. And then, like, the big bad will appear, and you'll all use your powers together. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. I hope that happens. It may not. I don't know. There may not be a Voltron moment.
Where we literally just stand on each other and make one big person.
Well, that is all of our questions. Before we go, we have a super exciting announcement. On our next episode, which drops this Monday, we have a special
I didn't know we were
guest.
announcing this.
Yes. Mia, who hosts our watch party and streams under the name More Than a Mia on Twitch, is joining us for a set of episodes that we don't know how long yet because we haven't finished recording it.
You only get half of the episode with me in it, so...
Yeah, that's true, yes. Next episode, there are some technical difficulties.
There's some things.
Real-world difficulties that happen.
Yes.
So.
Well, it is technical. It's just not in the room.
Yeah.
Anyway, you'll see. But yes, we will have Mia with us starting on Monday and going through this little arc of episodes. She is joining us for her first time playing D&D. She's created a character specifically for the adventure in the Red Ring. We've been super excited about it. We've been sitting on the information for really quite a long time. And I'm so thrilled that we're able to do it. We've already recorded the first episode of it. It's so fun. So we hope you will join us on Monday and for the next few Mondays to check out Mia's guest appearance on Khyber Shards. And you should also check out her Twitch stream because she is a very engaging streamer. You can find her at twitch.tv/morethanamia. I believe that is all the things. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find all of our social media links down below, including our Discord, where we draw most of the questions for Khyber Shards answers. You can also submit questions
in real time
comments
as you found
below.
out this episode.
And yes, apparently I left the window up, and behold, yeah, get it just right. You get them live-ish. So please let us know how you are enjoying the campaign so far. In comments down below, give us some likes and some subscribes. We certainly appreciate all of the engagement that you guys have given us. And until next time, this has been Khyber Shards, and thanks for rolling with us.